Hello, kiddies. It's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And you're listening to The Bottom Shelf.
$98, $99, $100, $101, $102, $101 taco shells. Guys, I need a break. Can we review Wrath of the Titans? Guys? John, what are you looking at that control panel?
Hey, taco machines, right. You ever look at these things and wonder, like, for instance, what does this button do?
Warning. John!
Warning. Prepare yourself to discover a world of terrible movies. High above the planet Geekery, a group of intrepid explorers hover over the dangerous planet in their fabulous super-orbital spacecraft. Their mission? To conduct a complete analysis of movies known throughout the universe as terrible. So grab your space popcorn, grab your freeze-dried ice cream, and join us for today's mission of discovery and wonder. Are these movies better than the galaxy thinks? Or do they really belong on the bottom shelf?
Hey everybody, what's the happy haps? I'm your host with the rappy raps. I'm your boy John on the mic with another exciting episode of The Bottom Shelf. And
You keep pushing buttons.
What's that?
It's only exciting because you keep pushing buttons.
I can't help it. I'm part gremlin. That voice you just
Does that
heard.
mean we can't feed you?
Just not after midnight. But there's no time and space, so you can feed me anytime, my dude.
How does that work? Whose midnight is that we're not supposed to feed the gremlins?
I mean,
is it the Mongolian midnight?
Who knows? But those voices that you're hearing me are my bosses. With that being said, we have Dallas Mora, the reason why I'm going into seminary, basically. And then his lovely wife and everybody's boss, Celeste Moore. Hey, Glicks, can you not cut me off for this episode like you did for the last one? I'd appreciate it.
Depends on how much you annoy me today, John.
Well, that was rude, Glicks.
All right. That being said, I have to look at the script because I forgot what I'm supposed to do.
I think we're reviewing a movie.
We are reviewing a movie, and what we pulled out of the dumpster, it just happens to fit with the theme over at Geek Devotions. Again, we're doing the sequel to the previous one, the previous episode, Wrath of the Titans. Someone wrote the name down wrong in the script, so the script is incorrect as well. That being said, Celeste, why don't you tell us why don't you read the back of the box?
Sure.
Let us know what this movie's about.
Sure. Let me read that real fast. This movie is brought to you by the director of The Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, and Battle Los Angeles. That's a weird title for a movie. Jonathan Liebesman. Liebesman, and written by one of the writers of The Orphan and The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. That's a poor excuse. Clash of the Titans stars Avatar himself. No, not that Avatar. Sam Worthington. He wasn't the Avatar. Well, no. Maybe he was.
Other Avatar. Blue Avatar.
Well, no. I was getting into the semantics of the actual movie, but nobody remembers the actual plot because that movie is nothing but, hey, look at my pretty things.
It's Ferngully for the modern age. That's what Avatar was.
Yeah, that's fair.
My gosh, I never realized how correct that statement was until you just said it.
The man who trained not one but two orphans, Liam Neeson, Rosamund Pike. She begins her journey of playing characters as poorly done adaptations of people's favorite stories.
Ouch.
She got a little fierce there.
I
I
did.
guess. Well,
But that's not actually the back of the box.
all right.
Well, read the box.
That's just my estimation of the movie. A decade after defeating the monstrous Kraken, which might have looked like it was a precursor to Cloverfield, Perseus attempts to retire to a quiet life as a fisherman and sole parent to his young son. However, a great war has erupted between the gods, weakened by humanity's lack of devotion and the long-imprisoned Titan, who are led by a ferocious Kronos. Betrayed by Hades, Zeus is captured and brought to the underworld, and Perseus must once again become a hero in order to find Zeus and the end of the Titans' struggle to rule the earth.
Well, it sounds like an exciting film for the sequel to a middle shelf film, as we've rated it last time.
Mm-hmm.
In the Magic Podcasting, we have some.
Just hearing Celeste read the back of the box, I was having Percy Jackson flashbacks for a brief moment there. It's like it's striking how much this movie sounds like it's going to lift off of the Percy Jackson movies.
Or was it that the Percy Jackson movies lifted off of this movie?
No, other way around, because I think the books were first.
The books are usually first.
Those books are so good too.
They really are.
Well, Dallas, why don't you did we get any I know we kind of put the communication out for both movies at the same time, but did we get any specific for this
We got a couple. Got a couple. The first one is I'd say the sequel I'd say shouldn't even exist. Well,
wow.
That was just Frank right there. And then the second one we have is builds up on the first film. Builds up on what the first film did for a more enjoyable movie.
We are getting contrasting communications here.
This is interesting, this dichotomy, because like from what people were telling us from the last movie, we should have just like bottom shelf dumpster fired the last film. And we kind of enjoyed it. One of us gave it a top shelf. And now we're right here in the communications. We're getting saying that it shouldn't even exist. And some people are saying, no, it was pretty enjoyable. We liked it a lot. So I don't know. John, is there anything in the trivia that could give us a clue as to what's happening?
Well, I can tell you that Gemma Arterson was originally supposed to return to this movie as Io, but scheduling conflicts with Hansel and Gretel witch hunters prevented that. So her character was written out rather than being recast like Andromeda was. And Andromeda didn't come back for this movie either. Contenders for her role was Haley Atwell, Georgina Haig, Janet Montgomery, Dominique McElliott, and Clemence Posey. Excuse me. And the role was previously portrayed in Clash of the Titans 2010 by Alexa Davalos, but she actually turned down the offer to return to this movie. So like she legitimately said like, no.
Wow.
Hephaestus keeps, there's parts in this movie where Hephaestus converses with Bubo, the mechanical owl from the original Clash of the Titans. And we talked about Bubo a little bit and how it was a wasted opportunity. Again, we'll see if that happens the same way. So excited to see the return of Bubo. Maybe they'll do more of that. Bill Nighy, who plays Hephaestus in this movie, when he recognizes Perseus in this movie, he says, "Release the Kraken," which is kind of funny because Bill Nighy plays Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean, and he has to say the same thing.
He does.
That's good. That's good.
So yeah, that's my little factoids on this film.
Objectively a better Kraken.
Wow.
I mean,
It doesn't help that, like, when the Kraken came on the scene in the first movie, I'm sitting here going, "Baby!" Alice is like, "You know they're gonna kill that, right?" I was like, "Yeah." And it also looked like it was from Cloverfield. You're right about that, John.
yeah. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we were having conversations while watching this movie. And I had made a mention that in looking at the Kraken from the previous movie, it looks like the monster from Cloverfield. So headcanon, Cloverfield is a sequel to Wrath of the Titans. No, Clash of the Titans.
But we're talking about Wrath.
All right. So let's talk expectations.
Yeah.
Oh.
So let's you go first.
I don't have a ton of expectations from this one just because sequels, especially sequels that were made fairly quickly, tend to not be great.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is only 2 years younger than the first movie, which means as soon as they started making money, they went, let's make another one. And so that makes me go, you didn't take your time with this. I'm expecting at best a middle shelf, at worst
Okay.
the top shelf.
Yeah.
How about you, Dallas? How are you feeling on this one?
Bottom shelf, sorry.
I'm with Celeste. I'm like, sequels, they don't tend to do as great, especially when they rush it. I just kind of peeked behind the curtain. I noticed that there was a budget of $150 million, which is like 25 million more than the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
But in the United States, just the United States, it only grossed $83 million.
Oof.
I will say that doesn't necessarily, as a sequel though, it doesn't necessarily reflect on this movie so much as it does the previous movie. May have lowered some expectations, and some people might have been all like, I'll see, like maybe some other people middle shelved it and been like, I'll see the second one on HBO.
That's a possibility. So I don't know. This should be interesting. I'm curious what they're going to bring into it, because it ended pretty well. I thought the first one ended pretty well. So I'm going to project it probably be a low middle shelf. If that, yeah.
All right. Well, I own this movie. I don't remember watching it. Like I know nothing about this movie. I have like zero expectations. Like I have been going my whole life being like, yeah, I've seen the second movie, and now I'm like up to it and I'm like, I don't remember, dude. Like it's so I'm completely blank. I have zero expectations. I can tell you what I'm hoping for is that they try to do something to really try to make the movie its own thing rather than throwing a whole lot of "Hey, remember this?" at the camera, which apparently Boobo shows up, so maybe I might be out of luck there. But for the most part, I'm hoping that the other person who communicated with us saying it's better than the first is correct.
Yeah. That would be good. All right.
So that being said, warm your popcorn, grab your snacks. I prefer those kind of chewy sour balls myself. So, but that being said, unless anybody's got anything else they want to say, let's go ahead and jump into that movie theater.
Sounds good. Celeste, I'm going to mess up your count and get some more tacos.
Okay.
Dear listeners, this is your opportunity to escape. Our crew has just entered into the media projection chamber. What horrors and madness that they consume are unknown. Their mental state upon their return is unknown. You have been warned.
All right. Well, we have just returned from the viewing chamber.
That was,
and we watched a film.
I did not remember any of that, like at all.
Really?
It was like a movie I've never seen before.
That's disconcerting.
I'm almost wondering if like I bought these movies and I just kind of set it aside and been like, I'll get to it. And then I never did. And I just assumed because I had it that I'd seen it.
That's always a possibility.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case,
Like
let's
for
talk
real,
about-
they're like, this is like weird. Like weirdly, like I don't know any of this at all.
Is this like a similar to the kin that you had a really weird experience earlier this week?
It's the exact
where you-
opposite. Yeah. Like,
yeah, where
okay.
it's like, yeah, go on.
Okay, so for listeners at home, I had a really weird experience this week where I was just kind of surfing on Spotify, right? And just kind of seeing where the wave takes me. I didn't have anything in particular I wanted to listen to while I was working. And all of a sudden the song popped up, like this Christian goth band. I with a semi-familiar sounding band name popped up. They were called Sincerely Paul. And I'm like listening to it and I'm like, hey, this is kind of like The Cure mixed with The Cult. And I dig it. And so I kind of did the Spotify thing and I said, see artist. And I looked at they only had one album. So I'm like, listen to the album. And apparently the album was a reissue of an album that came out in the 90s. And I'm listening to it and I'm like, I hit this one song. I'm like, I know this song. I don't know this. I don't know this band. Like I know nothing else on this album up to this point, but I know this song. Not only do I know the song, I can sing along to it. And I have a nostalgia feeling for it. Like some important life events happened when I was really into this song. So like this movie is like the exact opposite of that type of experience. Like I'm like Gandalf sitting in front of a locked door being like, I remember nothing of this place.
I have no memory of this place.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's get into some of our spoil-free conversation about it. I will say this: I feel like the action kicked off faster in this movie than the first movie.
That's fair. I agree.
Which I guess that's a product of the fact they didn't have to do as much world building. They're like, you're here, you know what's going on. They give a quick little recap in the intro. Bam, we're in it. There's all of a sudden a two-headed fire-spitting creature tearing up a village.
Can I just say, I'm jumping from your point off into the void here, Dallas. I apologize, but this movie really has nothing to do with the first movie.
The only thing it has to do with the first movie is they got the same guy to play Jason and the same people to play.
You mean Perseus?
The gods. Yes, Perseus. I kept getting it confused because they were from Argo.
Yeah, Jason and the Argonauts.
Jason
I get
and the
it.
Argonauts, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to agree with you. It felt like this was a different movie. Like it was almost like there were two proposed scripts for a movie, and after they did the first one, they're like, "Hey, this did well. Hey, there was a second script for another movie. Let's just do that."
I mean, if you were to ask me in watching this movie, I would say that this movie felt like they said, "Hey, that last movie was fun. Let's take these characters and play in the same in the same sandbox." Yeah, it basically the beginning of this movie was just enough to acknowledge, "Hey, you saw the last movie. These are all the same characters.
Yeah.
Here's a completely different story with absolutely nothing to do with the previous movie."
You could honestly watch them separately. Like
Absolutely.
you could watch Wrath and not have watched Clash.
Yeah. Absolutely. If it wasn't, well, I'm not gonna get into that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, just the pacing of it. It's just like, I mean, there's similar characters, and that's about it.
So, I mean, from my perspective, I think I got my wish when I said they'll take the movie and make it something of their own, because this felt nothing like the original movie at all to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that one.
And
just
can we go ahead, Dallas? I'm sorry, I've been talking too much.
No, go for it.
Well, I was just gonna say, can we talk about Sam Worthington's hair for a moment in this one?
He first of all was going, he needs to shave that.
He does not look nice with hair.
My man. All right. So I had a thought when I was watching this, and I'm like, did they have him grow his hair out so he'd look more like the dude from the 1981 movie?
They
No,
might have.
I
I'm pulling up pictures right now. That might have been the plan.
I question if they even had him grow his hair or if that was a wig.
Well, and I get that. There was a couple times like the lighting in this movie did not help him at all. There was a couple times in this movie where they had him pinned down and he looked like Jack Black in a wig trying to play a gladiator.
Didn't he do that in one movie?
Probably. Jack Black will do anything.
Well, like there were several like whoever was directing the style. The guy who played what was the character's name? Argo,
Mm-hmm.
Agonir, Toby Kebbell. His
The
hair at times was a mess. I was like, "What is happening here, man?"
Honestly,
Like,
though, he was the most authentically Greek-looking person.
Wait, are we talking about the son of Poseidon?
Son of Poseidon.
yeah,
Oh my god, that guy looked like Amy Winehouse with a beard.
Oh no.
who's the British actor who has gotten political recently? He's a skinny dude.
Oh, you're talking about Russell Brand.
Is that who I'm thinking of?
Yeah, because I had a similar thought too, where I'm like, they could have got Russell Brand to play this guy, and it probably would have worked better.
Like it was just like the feel of the guy.
Like
Yeah.
he was dollar store Russell Brand or
Yeah,
Amy
yeah.
Winehouse with a beard, whichever one you want to play.
And honestly, the craziness that he tried to play out would have been better done by Russell Brand.
Oh, absolutely.
So-
I honestly think like the director was like, "Hey, can you do that scene except more like Russell Brand?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotcha. Like
Highly
there were just several times where I was just like he looks like Russell Brand at times, and it just wasn't working.
You know, also could have done that and done it better than even Russell Brand did it. Johnny Depp.
Johnny
I can
Depp
see that.
can do anything.
Bring
Well,
bring
we're
that
talking about-
Captain bring that Captain Jack Sparrow energy to that role. Are you kidding?
While we're talking about actors who look like other actors, I kept thinking that Edgar Ramirez, the guy who played Ares, was Jake Gyllenhaal the entire time.
Oh,
He has too much weight on him to be Jake Gyllenhaal.
I thought that Jake Gyllenhaal got stung by a bee. I don't know.
It like, don't get me wrong, the guy who played Ares was a healthy weight, but Jake Gyllenhaal looks like a gauge 23 needle. He is so skinny.
I get you, but for real, like the entire time, I thought it was Jake Gyllenhaal. They just
who
buffed him up a little bit.
who played Ares?
It was Edgar Ramirez.
See, I thought it was Kim Coates.
Who?
Kim Coates.
Oh,
I don't know.
I can kind of see that.
Let me look him up. Hang on.
I can see it a little bit. His not enough bags under his eyes though.
It's the color of the eyes and then the goatee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why does this guy look like Inspector Clouseau to me?
So,
For those of you wondering who Kim Coates is, he was the guy who was in Battlefield Earth, who dies on top of the dome in the giant
which
explosion.
Battlefield Earth was filmed here in Shreveport when I was a child.
Was it really?
And has also been covered on this podcast, so go check that out. I ended up buying
Oh,
it.
Battlefield. I'm sorry, I was thinking about Battle Los Angeles, which is what we were talking about otherwise.
Oh no, sir.
Yeah, Battle Los Angeles was filmed in Shreveport, and in fact, portions of the highway when I was going to school were blocked off for them to film that movie.
Nice.
I remember that.
Hey, I have an idea. Let's talk about the movie we're talking about on the show.
Okay, yeah. So it was a movie, and I don't know. Like, I'm not sure if I liked it or not. Like, it didn't feel like it was different enough.
Really,
to be
I
a
felt like it was so completely different from the first movie. It felt so completely different from the first movie to me that it felt like it was completely. It could, if it weren't for the characters, it could have been its own movie entirely, and you wouldn't have missed a beat.
Well, that's the thing is like it just felt like it was just another story in the world. It wasn't like there
Yeah.
was no connection to anything. It just was like, but it's the same story beats. It's you know, home dude's coming to grips with what he is and who he is and what he does, and the big baddie's trying to release a big scary monster, and he fights the big scary monster. Like it was the same story beats.
I
Yeah.
have issues with how they portrayed the big scary monster.
Kronos.
Yeah. I didn't remember if that was a spoiler or not as to who the bad guy was.
We
Well, you
haven't.
read it on the back of the box.
Yeah, but to get into the details of it, that's kind of spoilery. So let's jump over the spoilers, and then Celeste can finish her thought.
Ladies and gentlemen, the spoiler section.
I'd like everybody to know that Celeste just did that bumper completely live.
No, I didn't.
And shh.
No, I didn't. I did dance to the music.
The magic of podcasting.
So my issue was that Kronos is supposed to be the god of time. And not once did he actually stop time.
Yeah.
Like he would have, if Kronos was a real person, a real entity, he would have utilized his powers. If he had enough power to break free of TARDIS, he would have stopped time. And they didn't play with that at all.
Yeah, and I was kind of feeling that too. I think my own knowledge of the Percy Jackson books kind of spoiled me for this for the Kronos part of this particular movie, I think.
For me, it was being spoiled by Lore Olympus because I've read that much more frequently and recently.
I'm not familiar with that, so I couldn't tell you. But as far as my own Johnness, I was just like, I've seen this done better in the Percy Jackson mythology. So I do think Kronos was mishandled. But to be fair, I think Kronos was kind of a Greek mythos buzzword for a while, along with Typhon. As far as baddies were concerned, because if there was a new Greek, if there was like a new Greek mythos property coming out, your bad guy was either going to be Typhon or Kronos for whatever reason. That was going to be your big bad, and in certain cases, it ended up being both.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just kind of playing with trends. I gotta ask Dallas, did watching these movies, did it kind of put you in the mood to play Phoenix Rising a bit? Watching it,
a little bit. There were a couple of things I needed more snarkiness to really get into the whole Phoenix Rising idea, but yeah, it definitely had some of those feels to it.
Can you imagine if the people who did Phoenix Rising like rewrote Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans to suit their characters? How amazing would that be? Speaking of which, did you hear that they shut down that series entirely?
I did. It is gone for good.
That makes me so sad. Why Ubisoft? Oh, because it's Ubisoft. Okay. So what else? Let's talk. What else impacted you about this movie, if anything? I know that my wife disliked the replacement of Andromeda.
I did too.
My wife just dislikes replacing any character from the original. So,
replacing Andromeda again, even though she was supposed to be like this major point of the story, but the character itself still felt like a background character the entire time. And now that being said, I want to like Rosamund Pike, but I've yet to see her in anything that I really enjoyed. Like the Wheel Time was okay. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a great story, but she's very like wooden and very put offing. And it's just like, I just like, it wasn't enjoyable having her there. And I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's the scripting they keep giving her or what, but her characters felt like it was a background piece the entire time.
I enjoyed her. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Celeste.
I enjoyed her in Wheel of Time, even though I disliked how they did that series. Like if it hadn't been Wheel of Time, then it would have been fine. But because they were basing it off a series, it was terrible. But I enjoyed her acting, but I did not enjoy her acting in this because again, she's forgettable.
For me, with her, it's like she was almost a bridge too far when I first started watching this movie, just because they took Andromeda, who at the very beginning of the movie was so opposed to harm coming to anybody, right? Like she was giving to people on the street. She's just like, oh, sacrifice me for the sake of the city, beloved. Send me to my death in front of the Kraken. And then in this movie, she's just like, hey, I'm queen. I'm going to war. Let's swing some swords and against some gods and a thing. And what's it?
Well, even at the end of the movie, like they've had victory and she's not celebrating. She's prepping for another attack.
Right. It's just like that was the first point in the movie where I had to shift gears on how I was watching the movie and say, this is not a sequel. This is a completely separate. This is a separate story using the same characters.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like this is taking the comic book route. Like this happens on Earth number 756.
That actually would have made it better.
You know what I mean? Like I could get down with that. Like this is a completely different. And the thing about it, now that I say that, like they talk about this aspect of myth telling a bit in the God of War video game. And they dabble a little bit with it in this as well. But where they talk about how myths can vary on relational roles and things that happen with them. And sometimes some myths have nothing to do with other myths. And I almost wonder if, like, instead of trying to retcon things, they were just like, hey, this is a different myth, same characters, different story, and go. Like it was intentionally a kind of a nod to that, where it's both and instead of either or. You know what I mean?
If they were going to do that they would have needed to have put something in the beginning about how myths are, because myths are told by word of mouth, that they are not always the same, that people's characters and mindsets change.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I would have appreciated that also, like where there would have been like this is a different story, this is a different realm. But like even in because like I'm sitting there going through my limited catalog of Greek mythology understanding of certain things. I'm like, isn't there supposed to be certain other people around in this time frame? Like I'm like when Zeus was like, we're getting everybody together. You know, it was almost like this whole like we're getting the band back together type of moment when he's talking to Perseus. But I'm like, the only person you brought is Ares. I'm like, you have a lot of kids, dude. Like, where's Hercules?
Where's Apollo?
Like, there's a whole pantheon in that first movie of his kids. Like, so Apollo, where was he?
Where was friggin' Artemis? She was a warrior.
She was a hunter.
She was also a warrior, I think.
I don't know. It was a weird. They made choices for the movie, I'm sure, just for pricing and
And I mean, you got to work, and that's I gave a lot of grace to this movie when I was watching it. Like, you got to work with what you're given. I can promise you that the writers of these movies, like they put enough research into the myths to know what characters they were dealing with. But like this was complete creative license, which you almost have to expect. I mean, there was rock people in telling of the story of Noah. You know what I mean? It's just like they know enough of the story to be critically dangerous, and I feel like it's the same with this one. And you can hold it up to, like, there's a lot of Christian media out there that's just like, oh, Hollywood's just trying to eschew the Christian Bible, and they put in their own things. It's just like, well, my dudes, they kind of do it to everybody. You know what I mean? Like, they did it in this, you know. So
They did. They did. So I don't know. There was just a lot of things, stuff that was missed out. Like Bill Nighy's character. First off, I like Bill Nighy a lot. Like every time he pops in a movie, he just thank you. He adds a little something to it. Like I enjoyed him as Victor in Underworld, as Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean. Honestly, his portions of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy are some of my favorite parts, where he's like just shattering Arthur's world by telling him, "Yeah, we created it, and the mice are actually the ones who are in charge." That was funny.
We're spoiling movies that we aren't talking about.
Indeed,
you know,
but
we watch movies allegedly.
True.
There was I feel like there's so much more that his character could have done within this, but at the same time, like, can we talk about the fact that he was unrecognizable at first? Like, I didn't realize that it was him at first.
I feel like every character he plays, he does something where it's hard to see him, like his actual face.
I'm trying to remember. Remind me again. We just got so sidetracked and I forgot which one Bill Nighy played again.
He played the old man who talked to the clock. The owl.
Hephaestus, that's right. Yeah, it's because he had his face completely covered by the beard.
Like that transformed him considerably. I was surprised.
But he was definitely Bill Nighy doing his Bill Nighy-ness.
It took a minute, but I saw it.
So it was good. I would have preferred getting some, like, in the section that we were talking about in the trivia section, where he's talking to Bubo. I would have appreciated more interaction with Bubo, like it actually making the Bubo noises rather than just saying he was crazy in the head. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about initially with, like, it takes the things that people appreciated about the 1981 movie and just marches it out there and shames it. It's just like, it was dumb.
Instead of like doing it better.
Yeah. It's just like, if you think it's dumb, fine, don't put it in the movie. Don't sit there and shame me for liking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm gonna say, I know some people are gonna dislike it, but I actually kind of appreciated the story arc of Hades and Zeus.
Oh yeah.
And I appreciate, I know some people are gonna think it was kind of hokey, but I appreciate that whole transformation that took place from the beginning of the movie, where he's like, Hades begins to realize, wow, we overcame dad for a reason, and now my brother's over here trying to forgive me and all that kind of stuff. Like I appreciate that whole thing. And then that ending scene where they're like, we were young gods. It's like, let's show them some fireworks. And they're out there just like I expected like some sort of rock and roll music to come on in the background as they're like blowing things away. Like that was fun.
Yeah, for sure. It was the Yoda fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tones between these two movies, the stories that they were trying to tell, are completely different. Like the story of the original movie, it legitimately felt like it could have been a myth. I mean, it legitimately was a myth that was retold. You know what I mean? Whereas this one feels more like Titan Cinematic Universe. You know what I mean? TCU. Whereas where it's just like, okay, we're starting with some new content now. We're bringing it out. Being as we're kind of getting towards that point, I can openly say I enjoyed this movie. Like I was sitting back and I'm like, I remember none of this, and that helped me a lot, to be perfectly honest. Like seeing it for the first time, I can watch it with new eyes and be like, that was kind of fun. But it was only after I shifted gears and said, this is its own thing. This has nothing to do with the previous movie. You know what I mean?
I think that helps. I think that helps a lot. I'm looking at the writers, and I'm the tones of the comedy in it
Mhm.
are starting to make sense to me because one of the writers, well, first off, he worked on Fast X, which was the latest Fast and Furious movie. But he also, that's just that somebody's gonna listen to this podcast later and they'll be like, Fast X, that we're on Fast 20 right now. How old is this podcast? Anyways, um, but he also
Still
another
has Vin
writer.
Diesel in it too, I bet.
Yeah.
Still trying to catch that paycheck. Vin, if you hear
Fast
this,
and the Furious, the nursing home edition.
yeah, they got souped up wheelchairs as they're going through the nursing home.
Yes.
I live
Vin-
my life 1/4.
Vin,
What were we talking about?
Vin, if you're listening to this, I mean no disrespect by my comment. You make that bag if you can get it, my dude. So
Yep.
And Vin, also, if you're listening
but-
to this, go check out my D&D podcast, Playing Games with Strangers. If you'd like to guest or if you would like to be on it, I will make room for you. Like it can be the Vin Diesel show, man. I will fire everybody if you want to be on the show. So
Actually, I feel like he might listen to Playing Games before he listens to this because he does play D&D.
I know.
Right.
That's why I said that.
But
I could also
anyways,
see him listening to a small time podcast talk about him too. So,
but one of the other writers, they did Superman and Lois, The Flash, Titans, Stargirl, Doom Patrol. Like this is all making sense. The type of humor,
not even the type of humor, just the type of storytelling. That they did this. There were so many times I'm sitting here watching this, and I'm like, I would love this as like just a season long series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Give me 22 episodes of this with a solid beginning and a complete ending.
And honestly, it probably would have, like, they could just do this one story.
Yeah.
And add so much more to it, and it would have been better.
Mm-hmm. Even if it was like an 8-episode like mini series, like it's so popular now on like HBO Max and Netflix.
And I will say that does speak to the quality in comparison of this movie to the previous movie. Elvis used to say, leave them wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
And that was exactly what this movie did for me. I was just like, I want more of this. I want this to be an expanded universe. I don't want to just follow Sam washing face. I want let me follow some other characters within this mythos. Let me see everything, give me some other characters, being as you've established this theme of same characters, different stories. Let me see a movie about the Jinn from the last movie. Let me see, I want to see a movie about the Hunters from the last movie, to be perfectly honest. You know what I mean? Like
they're just rolling around on their Scorpion. That's the entire series.
Like
Scorpion writers.
Yeah, like give me a Greek Mad Max. You know what I'm talking about?
Hold on. Speaking of me, I'm glad you said that. At the final fight scene, when they're all like wrapping themselves up and covering themselves with mud and everything, that was the first thing. Like, when did this become like Mad Max Greek Road
or a Predator?
Oh my gosh!
Not enough testosterone for Predator.
Oh. Are you sure about that? There was a lot of greased up, sweaty men on the screen.
Maybe I just wasn't looking enough because it wasn't as nasty.
All right.
But no,
do we have anything else of value to add?
You don't want to talk about greased up, sweaty men, Dallas? Does it make you feel uncomfortable?
I don't want to talk about greased up, sweaty men.
Fair enough. Let's listen to the lady, being as she is my boss and is inventorying our stuff. Let's head on over to the rating section. Celeste, nope, you're my boss. I can't. Dallas, why don't you describe the rating system for the listeners at home?
We have a very simple rating system here at the bottom shelf. It did a little evolution a couple years back and got a guy working on our backlog, helping us to know what's what. But the way it works is simply this. First off, you have top shelf. I need this movie. I have to own it right now, right here. Next is the middle shelf, which is maybe if it's streaming, it's on Netflix, it's renting outside, and I got nothing else to do. Yeah, why not? Then you have the bottom shelf, which is I probably won't watch it again. In fact, I may, if I have bought it, I'm going to forget that I watched it and then watch it again on accident and go, oh, yeah, that's a movie.
Why are you calling me out, Dallas? That's rude.
And then we have the dumpster fire, where we will actively keep people from watching this movie ever again because it's so terrible and needs to be lit on fire and thrown into a dumpster. So let's get into it. I'm going to give my rating first.
All right. You do that, Dallas.
I am. I was absolutely prepared to bottom shelf the film. Like, I was like, I gotta. But as we kept talking, I'm like, I want more of this world. Like, I'm down for this. If they did something with it, I'm gonna middle shelf it.
All right. So basically you pulled a Branson where you came in thinking one thing, and then as you talked it out, you're like, it's not bad.
Yeah, basically.
Nice. All right. Well, how about you, Celeste?
While I want more of the world, I don't want more of this movie. I just don't. I was bored. Pretty much the entirety of the time, I was bored. Except for when the Witches of Striga came on, because then I had the moment of going, oh, I wonder if this is the image that's been embedded in my head as terrifying since I was a child. Rather than the Fates, which I thought that's who that was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I almost feel like I've seen that scene with the eyeball, because it's a little too squelchy for me. But squelchy. So I'm gonna go with bottom shelf.
Really?
I would not watch this again. I would not recommend it to anybody. If they made a series in the same world, I would watch it because it had potential, but it disappointed me on that potential.
Huh.
So, bottom shelf.
All right. Well, cue up your polling machines, Dallas, because I'm going to start out by saying this was a top shelf for me. I enjoyed, like, this movie for me was better than it had any right to be. Like, I enjoyed, like, I am completely with that person in the comments that said it took what they did in the first movie and built upon it. And the moment I shifted gears in my head and said, hey, you know what? This is a completely different movie with the same characters. I'm like, I enjoyed this a lot more than I'm supposed to. And I don't know why. This was the movie. Like, if they would have put this out instead of Clash of the Titans, I think that it would have gotten reviewed better as an independent property than associating itself with a classic movie, and not only a classic movie, but a remake of a classic movie that people didn't like because it wasn't the classic movie that it was that it was kind of redoing.
I think you may be right about that. I think that if this had come out first and they didn't, I think that was what bit the first one so much, was they called it Clash of the Titans.
So, but with that being said, yes, I enjoyed this movie. And watching it new was fantastic. So yeah, top shelf. So this one's going to the community to rate.
All right.
Because we were all over the place on this one.
We were.
Right. Well, with that being said, through the magic of podcasting, at the end of our week connection, we will have the actual final rating. So, that being said,
this is a week connection.
All right, everybody, welcome to the week connection portion of this podcast, where we try to find something of spiritual value from what it is that we watch. We try to find some spiritual truth, some redeeming message to bring it forth before you, and help you to find something of value within the media that we watch. Does anybody have a weak connection other than me?
I do.
I don't.
Okay, Dallas.
Yeah, so for me, there was a scene where Perseus in is it Argos, whatever his name is, his cousin, uh, the fallen one. He
Amy
is
Winehouse.
yeah. Um, but they're in the labyrinth, and Perseus is freaking out, and Home Dude slaps him and calls him Mutthead. First off, that's my new favorite thing to call people is a Mutthead if they're being stupid, because that was funny to me. Uh, but he gives them a speech about like, hey, look, a week ago I was, you know, in a prison cell, and now I'm here trying to save the world. And it was this moment where there's this exchange that took place where he's now encouraging him. He's now going, look, you helped me pull me out of the depths. Let me pull you out of the depths now, because we have something we have to take care of. And that is such a great picture of what the body of Christ is supposed to look like. We're supposed to help each other out. There's a scripture, Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And there's a lot of people that they get the workman mentality that they're supposed to be this Iron Man of faith, and they're supposed to be like, just I don't need any help, I got this, blah blah blah. But no, like the concept of lone wolves in the kingdom of God is so demonic and so wrong. Like it's not a thing that should be that's in there. We are called to community, and we need people to pull us out of the muck and mire, and we need to help other people do that, and that takes a level of trust, and sometimes that's hard, especially if we had people who have let us down. But it's one of those things that have to take place. We have to be willing to have people help us out, and we have to be willing to help other people out. And so my encouragement for people listening is, a, be willing to let people help you. Don't try to stonewall and be like, no, I got this. Let people help you. At the same time, don't be so proud not to help people. Some people just they just ignore folks, and we need to be cognitive about going, hey, who's hurting, and how can I encourage them, how to help them? So that is mine.
Awesome. My weak connections comes from Romans 9:20 through 21. And Dallas, I'm going to shock you again. I am not reading out of the ESV once again.
Ooh.
And what's going to shock you even more is I'm going to be reading out of the KJV.
Wow.
So go on down to your local dollar store and grab a KJV, because that's the fastest way to find one. Or head to your local hotel.
Thanks, Gideon.
Thank you, Gideon. That being said, Romans 9:20 through 21. Nay, but O man, who art thou to repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say to him who formed it, why hast thou created me thus? Hast not the potter power over the clay, and the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another to dishonor? One of the minor themes that happens throughout this movie is the conflict that Perseus has with his dual nature, being a demigod. And it's a theme that runs throughout this entire, I don't know if 2 movies could be considered a series, but between the 2 movies, which is that he wants to live as a man, but it's pointed out several times between the 2 movies that he is not a man. No matter how much he wants to live as a man, he is a demigod. And this theme is seen time and time again, not only in these movies, but in other media, such as the God of War games and the like, where they reject their godly nature. But to reject your own nature is basically to reject yourself and to confront the God that had made you in the way that you are and say, why have you made me this way? Well, God has made you with a purpose. And for you, a created thing, to say to your creator, you made a mistake in how you created me, is outside of your realm of authority. Because whereas, yes, you can say, oh, my body, I can say what I want because it's my life. But it's just like, it's leased to you. Because if it wasn't for God making you the way that you are, you wouldn't exist to complain about how you are made in the first place. And God's not accountable to you for that. But that being said, with our faith in God and trust in God, like I had said in the previous episode, I can do all things. No, God works all things to the Dallas. Help my brother out again.
God works all things to the good of his people. Basically, summarize it.
Yeah, basically, I remember paraphrases. I don't remember exact verses, and that's a poor excuse on my part. But that being said, our faith in God is that He has made us in a way that He finds to be glorious and appropriate for the work that He has set forth before us to do. So, listener, I say to you with this weak connection, be encouraged, because God has made you thusly for a purpose. You are made for a reason. You are made with a plan. You are of a divine creation. God made you special, and He loves you. We love you. And there is a plan and purpose for your life. And yeah, so basically, the whole Geek Devotions, what's it?
Mission statement?
Yes, thank you. Word recall, everybody. It's a skill.
It is indeed.
So that being said, we have come to the end of today's episode. Want to thank Celeste for hanging out with us. And does anybody hear a siren?
John,
This is not a test.
did you push another button?
No, it just, the one I accidentally pushed stayed down. It's not coming back up.
It stayed down?
It stayed down.
Oh.
Which button was it?
It was this one right here, this red one.
No. We don't know what's gonna happen now.
Wait.
Why did we install the improbability drive onto this ship?
Well, it's a space station, first off. We figure it was stationary. That would be a great place to put it.
DS9 says that's a lie.
We don't know what's gonna happen next month.
Warning.
Intercepting their signal was so easy. So they went to their community because they couldn't make up their minds on a film. Well, let's see what they came up with. Well, it would appear that they've rated Wrath of the Titans a middle shelf film. Very well then. Well, we've seen what they can do with terrible movies. But fortunately, John hit a special button I hit on the ship. So let's see what they can do when I show them movies that aren't so terrible for the next little while.